Codemotion.
Here are my details if you want to add me on Twitter or Plus. So what will I be talking about? I'll be talking about Google Maps Android API v2 and SDK for iOS. And to be honest, I didn't know anything about developing for a mobile up until half a year ago. You have more knowledge than I do. I only started developing when it was maps. I love maps. I'm a maps addict. So for me, learning how to use maps on mobile devices was all flipping a switch. It was that easy. Flipping a switch, putting a map on your mobile app. So just to ask you, how many of you have actually put a map on the mobile app before? Cool. And shout out the technology you used for that. Android, OK. iOS, OK. So Google has both Android and iOS APIs now. The Android one supports API level 12 and level 4 with the support library. And in iOS, for Android, and for iOS, it's really important to know that the development that you need to develop against has to be SDK 6+, but the target platform can be iOS 5.1. And this is just an overview of the features that are available. Now we'll go through them in the presentation, so I won't just bore you right now. So the most important thing to know that when you want to put a map in your app is that you really need to prepare. The reason for that is that if you don't do it, you run into different kind of problems, different kind of errors in your console, and you don't know why. So it's really important to get straight at the very beginning. In order to enable the APIs, you have to go to the Google Developer Console. It's code.google.com/API/console. Create a project and enable the APIs. The APIs names are Google API Android v2 and SDK for iOS. And then in the APIs access section, you configure access rules. So you said what bundle IDs are allowed to contact your app, or you put in a fingerprint. So a bit more on that. It's bundle ID for iOS apps, and for Android apps is a SHA fingerprint of your certificate that you use to sign the app with. Eclipse for example, uses the default debug certificate. So you can just use that, and then the package name of the app. And below, just for future reference, you have a command line on how to get the fingerprint. But I won't bore you with that. What's important to know is what not to do. Map view v1 keys will not work with v2 API. And the place you generate the keys are the Google API console, not the Google Play development console. It's really important. OK, now the presentation is a bit short. So I decided, and we don't really have network, so I won't be able to get tiles. So I'll just show you the demo in the slides. And hopefully, maybe if you want to see it live, come up to me. And if I get network, I'll show you the demos. So the package, the Google Map for SDK library, contains a sample package. And to launch it, you simply click. And the only thing you need to do is to get the key you generated, register the bundle ID, get the key you generated, and put it in the API key section in the API key.h file. This is the only thing you need to do. After that, you can run it, and then you have a full demo. I would like to show it, but the only thing I can count on is my cache right now. So let's see, maybe it works. So that's what it looks like. You have a bunch of files, the controllers, and a bunch of demos. Yes. And that's what it looks like. It's a list of examples that you can simply browse and go to. And I'll walk through the examples now. But I'm also a geek in terms of a GIS technology. So I'm going to bore you with a bit of GIS trivia. So how many of you know that the Earth is not flat? You know that the Earth is not flat. That's good. But do you know that there's a property of a polyline or shapes which you can say that the line is geodesic? Who knows what it means? Are you willing to come up and explain in Italian, maybe? Or stand up and shout if you have the voice.
Le linee geodesiche sono geodetiche, in italiano sono le linee più corte fra due punti. Uno si dice perché non è la retta che è la più corta fra due punti, spesso sì, quelle che si chiamano le geometrie euclidee, ma non tutte le geometrie sono euclidee. Per esempio, la geometria sulla superficie della Terra è una superficie curva, per cui la linea più corta fra due punti non è una retta, perché una retta passerà dentro la Terra. La linea più corta sarà una curva, e in genere sono le curve che vengono seguite dagli aerei per consumare meno benzina, perché così è la linea più corta. Per questo gli aerei, quando uno vede la traiettoria degli aerei, non è dritta, ma uno le vede un po'.
I only have 35 minutes. Okay, so basically that's what you explained, right? It's fine, no worries. So when you are on a plane, the shortest path from New York to Rome is like this. It's not a straight line. This is my first trivia, geo-trivia. Now for the Android demo. I'm going to jump a bit, but I'm chaotic myself. So how does the Android Maps API work? So it's bundled with the Google Play services. So the Play services you have Google Maps installed, and then in your app you have a client library to connect to Google Play services that actually gets the map from there. So it's important to know that Play services are the crucial part of putting a map in your app. So that's why when you set up your ADT or whatever ID you're using, you need to include the Play services and install them. And then you need to add the Google Android support library as well, because in order to support API 11 and below, and the demo code needs it as well. Boring, boring, boring. Boring, boring, boring. You need to import the following services libs. I did it so that you can reference the slides later. But this is the path you need to include when you download the bundle. So once you have that done, that's what it looks like in Eclipse. And you need to specify the permissions. The obvious ones are the maps receive and the key that you put in down here. But the less obvious ones is allowing you to use the internet and access find location and so on. There's one additional one that you can also specify to access when the network connectivity is poor. So you need to take care that you include it in your Android manifest. And what needs to happen is you have to have a physical phone to actually debug it and run it. So yes, now going to the next trivia, and it's about projections. Who here reads XKCD? Only, you should read XKCD, really. So XKCD comics once mentioned the maps projection, so what maps projection says about you. Now, who knows here different maps projections? Do you know any names? Names? Mercator? Anything else? Well, I'm here to tell you what are the different things. The thing that's on my chest here is Waterman. The problem with Mercator, and you can see the sample here, is that it maintains angles, but it doesn't maintain the size of the object properly. So it's the same circle, and as you can see, the circle is really, really small near the equator, but it grows to infinity, in fact, as you go north and south. So you need to be aware of the limitations of the Mercator projections. OK, another interruption. Now back to Maps Android API features. The simplest implementation just specifies a fragment, and you can add the properties of the map in the fragment. So that's initialized how you want it to be initialized. And then the simplest thing you can do is just extend an activity and load it. And it works. It just gives you a map that has a camera at a given position and has the given zoom levels. Of course, you might want to have different things in your view. So the way you would usually do it is have a private Google map and then just load the fragment and get the map like this. So what are the features that we have? We have base maps in 3D. That comes by default. It's awesome. You can tilt, zoom, and you see 3D objects. The demo code that you import has a camera demo activity, which shows you how to manipulate the camera to specify different zoom, bearing, and tilt. And what you can do after that is you specify the camera update objects, which tells you how will you update the camera, and you can simply boringly move the camera, but you can also use animations and animate the camera to move somewhere else, which gives you like this sort of toury way to move the camera. Another thing that's cool is the indoor floor plans. You get them. You just have to zoom in close enough. That's my shopping mall in Zurich, where I live. And you can see that when I zoomed in, I have all the floors already, which is quite cool. We also have the traffic layer, which you can use it. And it's really dead easy to use it. It's just set traffic enabled to true. And you can have custom overlays. So simply you need to put a file in your resources, and then you specify where to position the file. And this is the code. It's ground overlay activity.java. Of course, you can have markers and info windows. This is how you add a marker. You can set a property, whether it's draggable, and set the title in the snippet. This is a bit more on markers and info windows, especially when it comes to adding your own images and shadows. The basic anchoring scheme is like this. The default is 0.5, 1.0, but you can tweak it like shown here by specifying .anchor and giving values. This is the info window, how you implement your custom info window. So it's simply a view. It's static. There's a feature request file, your bug filed already on our issue tracker that I'll show you at the end. Now, a quick walkthrough for events. That's how you register, define a listener, registering a listener, and that's how you receive a listener. All simple Java code. Sorry for that, if somebody's sensitive ears. So it's dead easy to implement. And part of that, we also have polygons and polylines. So you can build little houses, build little creatures. That's how you add the polygon and polyline. Also with Eclipse autocomplete, it's really easy. You just dot and add and dot and add. And we have fragment support, so you can have multiple maps in one view, in one screen, and you can simply add that. The way to do it is you specify the linear layout and simply add different fragments in the layout. And also we have tile overlays. And so it allows you to utilize the Maps API for Android to view anything. Here is the surface of the moon, but you can put any image there and simply use the Maps API to zoom in out of the image or zoom out of the image and navigate in the image, which is really cool. So in order to get kickstarted and have a little small demo, if you put in shortcuts, kickstart Google Maps Android, you'll see this handsome man. His name is Chris. He's dating someone, but he is an awesome guy, and he's our developer outreach person, and he presented a really short 10 minutes video that shows you how to import his starting project, which only has a handful of files that you can use to play with the API. It doesn't have the demos. It has the basic starter kit. Who's looking forward to the projections part? Well, I'm going to torture you anyway. There's one projection that had a really strong message in this case. It's Gal Peters. Gal Peters maintains sizes. So it might distort the shape, but it will maintain sizes. So for example, in this image here, you see that Africa is really big. And you can see that the circles are misshaped, but the area maintains the same. And you can see the geodesic line and non-geodesic line. The orange one is a geodesic, the green one is non-geodesic. So yes, and this is the link to the comic. A globe. If anybody said the globe, you're the cleverest person ever. The globe is the best way to project a globe. And then you have the Waterman butterfly, which sort of looks like a psycho test. And this is why geeks like it. OK, now I'm sorry I'm galloping through this, but I wrote a too big a slide deck, and now I need to keep up with it. So we have Maps SDK for iOS features. And what are the features? You have the camera, just like in Android. You have different overlays, map types, and you have the traffic layer as well. You have polylines. You have custom markers, which you can specify as you wish. And you have a ground overlay, which you can change and can animate. So instead of now going through the demos and showing you snippets of code, roughly for iOS is the same as for Java, except that it's Objective-C. It has the same properties. It has similar functionality. So what I'll do instead is I'll show you a simple project to get started. This one is a project I built to showcase, to simply add a zoom in and out way, because I was too lazy to figure out how to zoom out of a map when I'm using the simulator. So I just added a button, and it started working. Now, if anybody knows how to zoom out of the map using a simulator, let me know. For me, it was easier to add a button. So the way you do it is you add a view in Xcode, and you specify a custom class, which is GMS map view. And then you link the properties. It's using storyboards in that case. And you link the properties, and you specify actions. The actions are tab zoom out and tab zoom in. And now we can implement the controller. The way we do it is oops. The protocol is Google. In order to be able to be the delegate of our map, we need to say that the protocol is GMS map view delegate. And then we simply, on view.load, we specify self Google Map camera and specify the camera. And then we say that we want my controller to be the delegate of the map. And after we do that, we can then, don't leave. Well, after we do that, we can then simply implement any of these methods, and we'll get notified of the changes to the map. For example, here, I simply logged the events. So I implemented did change camera position and logged the position. And I implemented did tap add coordinate and logged the result. So this sample, actually, I broke it just before the presentation. So if you import it to Xcode, it won't work, but the code is valid. So if you set up and take the files, it will work. And I'll promise to fix it. It's on GitHub in iOS samples directory. And if you want something to really get kick-started with iOS, that's the way to do it. Another really interesting app on iOS that we have is the Earthquakes on the Move. Now, it uses segs and, how do you spell it? I don't even know. But and it shows the earthquakes. So it uses a publicly available feed that shows you the earthquakes that are happening in the current hour. And it visualizes them on the map, in a list, and you can click and you see where the earthquake is. And I would show it to you, but we don't have a lot of time. But there's another episode of Shortcuts with Mano, which is another great guy in the Maps developer outreach team. And he walks you through his application in Shortcuts Earthquakes on the Move. You just search for it on YouTube, and it should be the first result. So just this slide had to be there. It's possible also to simply launch the native Google Maps app. And that's the way you do it. So for some things, you want that because there's no point of implementing, for example, the web service backend in directions if you can simply open URL that contains the directions. So I mentioned web services. So we don't yet provide directions and geocoding, but distance matrix and places API in the SDK. So what you can do is you can use the web service and create an endpoint for your application to use them. But it's important to know that there are certain limitations to that. So these are the limitations. But it's also important to know that Google allows caching, so you can cache your users, the responses to these queries, and you can do it on server side and simply serve the ones that you have to the users. So our terms of service include the exact dates and the exact length at which you can cache things. And please do it for scalability, because it's really a good practice. So you can guess I love maps. This is the next trivia for a GIS trivia. It shows side-by-side comparison of the Mercator projection and Gal-Peters projection. You can see that Africa has a totally different shape and totally different size comparing to Europe. So much so that Kai Krause was appalled at the fact that people didn't know how big Africa is. And he created this True Size of Africa PDF and visualization where he shows that United States and China and India can all fit into Africa. Africa is so huge. And you can see that he even managed to put Italy here. And it's amazing to see how big Africa is thanks to the visualization. If you want to look for it, just put Kai Krause, True Size of Africa, and it'll be the first results. So how do you stay in touch, and how do you keep updated about what's happening in Google Maps? Their list of channels is available at developers.google.com/maps/forum. And our issue tracker is code.google.com gmaps API issues. And these are the tags for iOS and Android. The slide will be put up, so you can take it from there. In terms of asking questions and getting answers to your questions, we use Stack Overflow. And these are the tags you should use to get your questions answered. So how do you stay tuned? The list is out there on the web, but the most important sources: developers.google.com, Google Maps API on Twitter and G+, our blog, awesome blog, frequent posts, really nice posts. And what's more important, we have YouTube, weekly YouTube broadcasts that we use to give really short updates on what's happening with the Maps APIs. I mentioned the poor network connectivity, and I just put it as a last slide just in order for me and for you not to forget. Now, with that, I'd like to thank you and ask you if you have any questions, and point to Alfredo. Everybody knows Alfredo, right? So if you have any questions and you're Italian and you want to talk to an Italian person, Alfredo is your guy. He said I can put his name up there, and I can say that, so I'm not just dumping that on him. And these are my details. So now for your questions. The question is, what's up with caching, and how do we save our geocoding quota by caching? I assume it's Google services, Google Web Services geocoding. So you can cache things for, it's a reasonable caching period. For me, I would say it's roughly a week. So we only specify it's a reasonable time, and but you shouldn't worry too much about it. You have your application knows how often you should refresh the cache to have the data updated. If it's okay for you to update it every week, it's fine. Okay, any other questions? So the question is, with the Google tile overlays, you can, if you write your own provider, you can specify your own tiles. And the question is whether you can use 3D tiles. Whether you can use 3D tiles. Vector tiles. I don't think it's possible right now because the only format you can specify is the only format I saw it specified was images. But I'll follow up on that. I don't know if it's planned. I don't know if there's a magical way to do it. If you come over and give me your contact, I'll follow up with the developers and ask them.
Codemotion.